Greenlight Network presents Football Time.
Welcome to Football Time Show. We're here for college football week 7 review. A burner of a week, upsets galore. A big-time playoff contender goes down. So what'd you make of college football week 7? We thought it was going to be a little bit of a dud week, but I don't know if the games were all that great, but some interesting results nonetheless.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be a little bit of a slower week, but we had some surprises, and like every other week of college football. So I don't know if I could call them surprises when they happen every week.
Yeah.
But it was definitely an interesting Saturday for sure.
All right, let's kick things off with Friday's game. Cal went up to Oregon. Oregon has done what it pretty much has done all season long. It's never all that pretty. I thought they'd have a little bit of a struggle here as more and more of their elite level guys go out. Verdell has already been ruled out for the season, but they got the win 24-17, had to make a little bit of a comeback. Cal doesn't seem to win games, but plays a lot of close ones nonetheless. The only thing I find it weird, though. I was looking at the rankings. I got to bring this up again. Ohio State has managed to make itself all the way up to 5th in the rankings, while Oregon sits at 10th in the rankings. It confuses me a little bit. 2 one-loss teams sitting at the exact same record. One has a win, this one at the other team's home stadium, and yet they're 5 spots behind. So I get it, Oregon. I probably would not choose them as one of my 4 best teams in college football right now, but I don't know why Ohio State has all of a sudden now moved right back up in there just because they beat up on a couple of really bad, crappy teams in the Big Ten. So what did you make of this Oregon win? And do you think they can ride this season out, with only 1 loss? Big game coming up this week versus UCLA.
Yeah, that Friday game almost caught them off guard, but they took care of business. But as far as 1 loss, getting in the playoffs, Ohio State's just going to have the advantage just on name and pedigree alone, I think. And despite the fact that Oregon went in there and beat them, they're going to look at the Oregon loss as a worse loss than the Ohio State loss, even though it was to Oregon. So it doesn't make much sense, really. But I don't know if Oregon has much they can do. Even if they went out, I don't know if they're going to be in that conversation, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to be a great game against UCLA. Chip Kelly, he's hosting a former team, so it should be an interesting one for sure. We'll see if I think UCLA has the offense to get it done, but we'll see what they can do against this Oregon defense.
Yeah, definitely so. It should be an entertaining game this weekend. I got to flip things over to Cal a little bit. You were pretty big on Cal being able to win some games in our preseason chat.
They've been very close many times.
Now, granted, that 1-5 probably could be like a 4-2. A couple things go right, but they're 1-5. They're 0-3 in conference. I really like Justin Wilcox as coach. I don't know if Cal would pull the trigger. It's not a team that technically does that, but if this keeps getting worse, what do you think Wilcox's job is safe there, or do you actually look at it sort of a long view here and be like, they're in every one of these games, they just haven't sort of found a way to win them?
I guess it just depends on what the expectations the athletic director and the donors and boosters of that football program have, because I think he's actually done a pretty solid job coaching this team. He just needs to get some sort of offense going up there. I don't know if he needs to change coordinators again or what. Defense has been playing good, but under Wilcox, we knew that was coming. But it's like you said, just a few things here or there, and this is a very successful year for Cal. So I hope they don't make the move. I think they're getting the right things done, and the Pac-12 is going to be up for grabs again next year. I don't see anyone really emerging as a dominant team other than Oregon. So I think they ride this boat at least one more year.
Yeah, definitely so. All right, let's move to our other Friday game. And stop me if you've heard this before. Clemson's offense struggled. They managed to pull it out, 17-14 over Syracuse. I will say the defense looked really, really good for Clemson. Huge game coming up once again this weekend versus Pitt. They're underdogs in this one. I've already seen the line. This is probably the first time they've been underdogs in an ACC game in quite a while. This Clemson, I thought coming off the bye, they might be able to find a little bit more of their offense, but it's just not there this year. And Syracuse, a little bit like Cal here, been able to stay in these games. They've been a little bit more successful finding wins, but just couldn't find that last second drive to tie this game up on that last field goal.
Yeah, I stared at this line the majority of last week, really wanted to take it. Should have taken it. At one point, Syracuse was getting 14. Wish I'd jumped on that ship, but they play really well at home. They seem to have a lot more energy playing at home. And I should have known with the way that Clemson's offense is. So I'll be interested to see what wins the day this next week. Will it be Clemson's defense or will it be Pitt's offense?
Yeah. I think both of us, I saw that Syracuse line and I was like, Clemson struggles with Syracuse when Syracuse hasn't been good and Clemson's been really good. But I think I just sort of convinced myself in my head that, coming off that bye week, they've had sort of time to maybe figure out some things at offense. But it's just they can't figure out anything. They can't hit explosive plays. They were able to run the ball a little better, but they didn't seem to want to run the ball, even when they seemed to run the ball better. So this offense just seems lost, and it'll be really, really interesting to see how that that Pittsburgh game plays out because
Pittsburgh is very weak defensively. So if they're going to move the ball against anybody, it could be against Pittsburgh.
Yeah, definitely so. So another poor performance from Clemson. They do get the win. They sort of stay in contention for that ACC conference, but really bad on the offensive end. We talked about this game on Friday. It sort of played out just how we thought it was going to. Georgia 30, UK 13. I didn't think Georgia's offense was great, but their defense was just way too much for this Kentucky team to handle here. And Georgia just sort of dominates this game on just sheer talent on that defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, Kentucky got a nice little backdoor cover there at the end, though. I didn't have a stake in that game. I knew it wasn't going to – I didn't think it was going to be the prettiest game, I thought. But, Georgia just – athletically, defensively, just dominated the game from start to finish. Never really was in doubt, and they didn't have to do a whole lot offensively to secure the rest of the game.
Yeah. I brought this up, maybe a week or two ago. This Georgia team looks like the best team in college football. But once again, it's playing a team that we don't really regard offensively as, any sort of competition. I mean, you look at their schedule, and legitimately – Arkansas might be the best team offensively that they played. Maybe Auburn. I don't really know how good this team is if someone is capable of pushing them offensively. Now, that being said, their remaining schedule is Florida, Mizzou, Tennessee, Charleston Southern, and Georgia Tech. I'm not sure any of those teams are even remotely capable of challenging this team's defense. We might not even really know that till they play Alabama. So, while they look really good and the scores look very good, I'm not 100% sold on how good this team legitimately is until they play somebody who can move the ball on offense. Maybe that's Florida, who seems capable of moving the ball on offense, but
Florida's
they're also
finally made the quarterback change.
Yeah, but they're also limited too. I mean, they made the quarterback change. Well, we're going to get to that game, but he also, wouldn't be what I'd call a legitimate great passer out of that pocket. He's a very impressive force, but, I don't know when Georgia gets pushed offensively the rest of this season. All right, next up, Purdue, Iowa. You know what happens when Iowa does not get turnovers? They lose the football game. So Purdue went in there, didn't turn the ball over. Iowa turned the football over 24-7. I don't think we thought this would probably come in this game, but I think both of us sort of, we watched Iowa play. We thought they were a really good defensive football team, but they had those games where they'd create 4, 5, 6 turnover games. That's not really a sustainable sort of thing. And then they turned the ball over. They didn't win this game. What did you make of this game? I was a little shocked by the upset, but not so much that the Iowa offense didn't score points.
Yeah, they, like you said, they've been riding a consistency offensively to just put teams away. But, Purdue's one of those teams where they're good for a really large upset and then just, dropping like 4 or 5 other games. So they'll get a big win, big quality win, but they'll probably lose a few that they're supposed to win. They've already done that a few times this year. But not shocked. It's a talented Purdue team. I thought they would be better than they have been thus far this year. So, but yeah, I was surprised to see Iowa would go down to an unranked team.
Yeah, that probably knocks them out of the playoff.
Probably hurts Ohio State a little bit too.
Definitely, if they end up losing, to an Iowa, which I can see happen, because their offense has been really good, but their defense has been a little shaky. So, if Iowa can create those turnovers versus Ohio State, they'll definitely be there. Next up, we'll move on to the Alabama and the Mississippi State game. It was not really a game. Alabama seemed focused pretty much throughout this game. They got up to that 21-3 lead. They did not blow that game. They stayed pedal to the metal. This was probably the best game I'd see them play quarter to quarter throughout it. Miss State just looked like they didn't belong on the field. And this was probably the Alabama that we were wondering, why didn't they show up last week?
Yeah, finally this defense that I've been touting all year showed up in a game, and I think that was really what kind of won the game for them. They had a couple looked like old Alabama of years past where, they throw a little 5-yard slant and the guy houses it. But I think it was the defensive plays and turnovers that they got that really told the story of this game. Yeah,
definitely so. What do you make of Alabama's rest of the season? Do you think that loss last week sort of woke them up? Do you think they're just going to roll the rest of the year and pretty much blow the rest of these teams out? I don't
interested to see the Iron Bowl at the end of the year.
Yeah, I don't really see anybody on this schedule that can really push them. You mentioned Auburn, maybe. I will say Bo Nix, 2 out of the last 3 games, has almost looked like a competent QB. Granted, one of those games was versus Georgia, so when he seems to play a good defense, maybe that has something to do with the mix. But, Tennessee, LSU, New Mexico State, Arkansas, Auburn, I think they'd probably be fine and probably blow most of those games out. Then we get to probably the big one with Georgia in that SEC championship game. So, Alabama seemed to found themselves I will say Bryce Young continues to look really, really good for a freshman quarterback, really efficient. Don't know if he quite has the deep plays that his predecessors in Mac Jones and Tua had, but looks like a highly efficient quarterback for sure.
Well, yeah, and the thing is he's got to get into the mindset where he doesn't have to single-handedly win these games. He has to get the ball into these talented receivers' hands, whether it's 2 yards down the field or 20 yards down the field. But like we saw last week, just dink and dunks. I mean, that's what they've been good for these past years. And then these just athletic wide receivers take those little routes and take them all the way to the house. And I think Alabama's capable of doing that. They just got to stay within their offense and not try to do too much at once.
Yeah, definitely so. All right, we move to the Big 12, and I hate to break it to you, Steve Sarkisian, not the answer for Texas being back. Once again, went up pretty fancy here, 17-3, driving down to get a score, pick 6, 17-10, and from there on out, they scored 1 touchdown. Oklahoma State, it's a house of mirrors, but it's a house of mirrors who's now 6-0 and 3-0 in conference. probably the second best team in the Big 12 pretty easily, maybe the first best team in the Big 12. We aren't going to get into the Oklahoma game because it was such a blowout, but I will say, seemed like they pulled the chute right at the right time to switch that quarterback because the backup came in there and was like 20 for 20 to start that game last week. So I think the Spencer Rattler career is done. But, at some point we got to say Oklahoma State, they win football games. It's weird how they win football games. It's alarming that sometimes, much like the Boise State game, they go down 20-3 or 17-3. They have weird stretches where they don't score, but they just find their way to win games. Once again, the rushing attack was really, really solid for them. Quarterback play mediocre, but what do you hang this on? More on Texas just sort of letting down and once again blowing a big lead, or you finally Oklahoma State just a good football team that wins games?
Whether it's a big defensive play, just staying close enough to where they can get the comeback. But, Texas has proven that they're pretty good at collapsing too, which that's the Sark way going all the way back to his time in the NFL. So
it's a good thing they didn't pay a lot to fire Tom Herman and bring
Texas
him in.
Texas has got to be disappointed. But anyway, yeah, Oklahoma State keeps finding ways to win. I'm really looking forward to when State and Oklahoma play because they're very similar. They're hanging around, finding ways to win games even when they should have lost games, and both are undefeated. So I can't wait to see those two teams match up.
Yeah, me too. Definitely. Should be a really, really good, entertaining game. All right, we'll move out Pac-12. The Arizona State team looked good for 10 quarters. 2 good games in a row. A great first half versus Utah, 17-7, and then a 28-0 run by Utah. Dominates this game. Arizona State, it's more the same. Look great, and then totally look like they belong in the same class as Arizona. Utah, steady as they go. Now 4-2 on the season, 3-0 in the Pac-12. They're in control of the Pac-12 South. I think both me and you were, the steady ship seems to always win this race. They seem to be the steady ship and not the one who has the extreme highs and the extreme lows here. What did you make of this game?
Well, they've finally figured out, I guess it's been about 3-4 games ago, they got their quarterback situation figured out. And this new quarterback they brought in, including this past week, has really been the game changer. I think their offense has performed a lot of points against Arizona State, and I think that's going to continue. And I think these guys should be close to the favorites to win.
Yeah, I think they will be. They'll that UCLA game will be really, really interesting. There's a couple, up there where Utah might slip up, but they seem to be, really finding the rhythm. The tricky one, going to Oregon State next week, right before the UCLA game. That might be a little tricky. They also have at Stanford. Oregon coming to their place. It should be a really, really entertaining Pac-12 finish here, especially in the South. See if UCLA can continue their road to the Pac-12 South. They probably have the hardest schedule that we mentioned, but this Utah seemed to find its way. Arizona State, more of the same. 3-1 in conference. They certainly aren't out of it. They have the win over UCLA. What do you make of this Arizona State team, or is it just going to be more of the same? We get dominant first half and then just totally atrocious second half, and they'll probably find a way to lose another game here or there.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to get any change from Arizona State. I think they are who we thought they were, and they haven't proven that they're going to be anything different this year. I don't know if that's coaching. I don't for the past 3 years.
Yeah, definitely so. All right. BYU Baylor. We thought this be an interesting game, but the Baylor Bears, we talked about Oklahoma State, we talked about Oklahoma, but Baylor continues to play really good football. I watched a lot of this game because it was, the early slate was a little bit dead and most of the games were over. And then this one was pretty much over. It was a tight game a little bit in that first half, and then Baylor just seems to wear teams down in that second half and really, put it on them rushing-wise. They had tons of yards rushing. The leading rusher had 188 yards and 3 touchdowns. I must admit, I'm becoming more and more fond of this Baylor team. It's not like an exciting watch, but it's just a good football team.
Yeah, I think they've got enough talent to really finish this year strong, and if they keep up this momentum and start getting some more recruits in there, watch out the next couple of years because this coach has got things turned around at Baylor.
Yeah, definitely so. They lost all their guys from the previous season, but they seem to be able to rebuild it really quick. So, Baylor might be right back in the mix in the Big 12 in the upcoming couple years. They might be right back in the Big 12 this year. They still have to play Oklahoma, so we can't quite rule them out quite yet. So should be interesting to see how this Baylor team goes forward. This one is one of those where you think you know college football and then you don't know college football. LSU wins 49-42. How they came up. Yeah, and then fired their coach. I don't know where this offense came from. Mostly a lot of turnovers from Florida. But how did LSU get to 49 points here in this game when they hadn't been able to do anything offensively in the previous weeks? Their rushing attack was so poor versus Auburn 2 weeks ago, and then versus Florida, they rushed for almost 300 yards. So what do you make of this?
I don't know if Florida just didn't game plan for stopping the run. Maybe they thought
they watched the Auburn tape.
Yeah, maybe they just came out with a game plan to stop the pass, and LSU just took what Florida was giving them the whole game. I mean, I think LSU's which is just unheard of, just gashing them over and over and over again.
Yeah,
me and you have both known that we just was wondering if they were going to wait till the end of the season. But I think what they thought was, oh no, he beat Florida. There's going to be some people that are going to want us to keep him, so we need to go ahead and fire him now. So I
Yeah, I think so, though they probably will lose the next week's game. So they all would have wanted him fired. Disappointing game for Florida. We mentioned Ed getting canned. The next one on the SEC chopping block might be the coach across the field there, and Dan Mullen. This one really looks bad. I mentioned that I didn't think he really wanted to be at Florida last year, just judging by some of his statements. I'm curious if that has bleeded over into, this season. He did finally make that quarterback change to Richardson. Maybe that buoys them and they go up. But, 4-3, 2-3 in conference. Losses to Kentucky, who, not that great. And then this just hammering versus a mediocre LSU thing. It will be interesting to see how this Dan Mullen thing breaks the rest of the year.
I heard a rumor that he could possibly be a candidate at USC, and I actually think that would work well for both USC and Florida.
Yeah, I think that would. I think that would fit him too.
Yeah.
A little less, wanting to win the SEC every year and more just throw your high-powered offense out there and everybody will be excited if you win 9, 10, 11 games. We'll move to the ACC and, wrong read on this one. NC State, 33, Boston College, 7. 10-7 first half. Second half, NC State came out there and just lit them up. How legit do we take this NC State team? One loss at Mississippi State, 2-0 in the ACC conference. Where do you put them in this ACC hierarchy? You've got a little mix there, Wake, Clemson, Pittsburgh. Where are you putting the NC State Wolfpack here?
I think they're a solid team. I'm going to get mad because they're going to pull me back in to start taking them again, and then they're going to
lose
start
to
losing.
Duke or something.
Yeah, I'm already eyeballing them. They're only 3-point favorites going to Miami this next week, so that could be a future one of my picks there.
We'll take that now. I think every Miami player is entering the transfer portal.
Yeah, so good NC State team. That was an impressive win. This is a good Boston College team, but I'm interested to see what they can do away from home because it seems like they save their best games for when they're at home.
Yeah, definitely so. I watched this game, and it was sort of going perfect in that first half. I was like, NC State, 10-7, Boston College hanging around. NC State's going to do bad things in the second half, and I'm going to get this win. And then they just took off and found their offense, and their offense has been really, really good, pretty much all season long. Didn't look great versus Clemson, didn't look great versus Mississippi State, but they seem to be able to find it versus these teams that are, a tier or two below that. So, and, you look back in that opening win versus East Carolina, looking better and better because they've played pretty well too so far this year. So NC State making the name for themselves, and moving over to the Pitt Panthers, 28-7 over Virginia Tech. I think we've both hated a little bit on this Pittsburgh team, but since that Western Michigan loss, they have put it on people, and yep. I will say, they've sort of found a little bit of a running game here to give them a little bit more balance. I don't know how much I trust this defense quite yet. Virginia Tech, I will say, was brutally awful in this game offensively. So what are you making with Pitt? Once again, in that mix for the ACC? Are they legit contenders here?
I think I'm going to have to give it one more week to get a really good ruling on this. I've got to see what they can do against the big dogs, against Clemson here. I don't know if I can trust them defensively. Yeah, they can put up points. They're one of the most, prolific offenses in the country. But it's like you said, the run game will help support their defense a little bit. But right now, most of their games they're winning are shootouts. But they come in and they really handled Virginia Tech. Not what I was expecting. So we'll see. They surprised me a little bit. They don't quite have me fully bought in yet. But if they can come in and take care of Clemson, then yeah, they're going to be my pick probably to win the ACC.
Yeah, definitely. I'm not quite sold. I'll already say I'm eyeing Clemson getting plus this week.
Well, let me say, if they can come out and not just win against Clemson, but come out and win by 2 or 3 touchdowns, that'll really get me bought in. But I think that's what's going to be necessary because this is not a very good Clemson team. They've already lost had some bad losses. So I think if Pitt really wants to make a statement that they're not the Pitt of old and that they're going to be the contenders, they need to win big Saturday. That'll be what convinces me. It's a big win.
Yeah. All right. We're going back in the coaches and will they have jobs? Fuente started out with a fun win versus North Carolina to open the season. It's not been real pretty since. And for a guy who's an offensive guy, this was really an embarrassing performance versus a team who really has been really poor on the defensive side of things. Can Fuente, sort of overcome this, or do you think this is probably it for him as well?
I think this is going to be it. The future doesn't look bright for him the rest of the year because they may still drop yet another on their schedule, at least one more. And I just think this fan base, alumni and faculty and athletic director, Virginia Tech doesn't want to be mediocre. They don't want to be, the 6-7 win team year after year. And that's what they've become. So I think they're going to make a change and see if they can't get something better.
Yeah, they certainly don't want to be a team that loses 28-7 at home, which really, I think that's where I was more disturbed. They just didn't have a lot of fight at home in a place that has always been really been a tough place to go and win. And Pitt Pitt just pushed them around and bullied them.
Yep.
And when you're getting bullied by Pitt, things are a little bit wrong there. All right, lastly, we're going to go to a fun one. UL Monroe, 31. Liberty, 28. The first time in a very, very long time that a team who has been underdogs by 25 points and 33 points has outright won the game. They beat Troy earlier in the season when they were 25-point dogs. They beat Liberty when they were 33-point dogs. So I think there's something to be said for coaching a little bit here. Bowden and Rodriguez seem to have them capable of scoring points. Is this more an indictment on them or maybe Hugh Freeze as a football coach in general?
Well, I don't know. For someone who made, a lot of news, just last year and the year before, what has Hugh Freeze done at Liberty this year? He's been very, very quiet, not really getting a whole lot done. And, I thought he was going to really try to take care of business and jump to his next ship. Now, I don't know if he still has any kind of punishments he's waiting out or something like that. But yeah, really shocked by this. Another huge upset to a really bad team. And we'll see if people, are still interested in Hugh Freeze after all this, or if he's just going to die away quietly at Liberty.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to spin off this game is, we've watched a lot of college football and, the past, I'd say 5-6 years, it's been really, really quarterback centric. I think, first rounds, there's, 4 or 5 guys every first round of the NFL draft where there are quarterbacks. We speak on this game, Liberty, Malik Willis was supposed to be, a big time, draft prospect. He was 16 of 28 for 135 yards and 3 interceptions versus Law Monroe. Needless to say, they will not have anybody playing in the NFL on their defensive side of the ball. We already talked about Spencer Rattler. We talked about Kelvin Slovis at USC. I wonder if this is one of those years where we don't have a first round, NFL quarterback. You got Matt Corral at Ole Miss. You got Carson Strong at Nevada. I'm not even 100% sure he's going to leave school and enter the NFL draft. What do you make of this quarterback crop here in college football? Do you think we will find somebody to force into that first round NFL spot, or is this one of those years, in the 90s and the 80s, there were years where there weren't, first round quarterback taken. Do you think we have one of those years, or is we going to force somebody, they're going to have a big draft come by and we're going to make them a first round pick here?
Well, there's 2 factors applying to this here. There's one, you've already pointed out the lack of talent in this year's class at the quarterback position, but 2, the last 2 or 3 years have been loaded with quarterbacks early. So there's a lot of teams out there that still have their rookie or their second year guy that they're waiting to see. So there's not going to be a whole lot of teams, ready to jump on the first quarterback prospect this year. And they may just look to, keep building the depth on offensive line or build some other pieces and then see where they're at next year with maybe a better class.
Yeah, definitely so. Do you think Corral or the Cincinnati kid are first round NFL quarterbacks, or are you a little shaky on them as well?
I think Corral's got the stats, but that's partially just because, he's on the field the entire game. So he's, every play he's getting, 90 to 100 yards or 100 snaps every game. You're going to get a lot of stats. Even if you run the ball half the time, you're still going to be throwing it 40 to 50 times a game. But I don't think, stats necessarily translate to NFL success by any means. And there's no guarantee that you're going to get put in the right position or the right, team in the NFL. And he's one that if you threw him into a bad spot like the Lions, he would.
Yeah, that's what I'm like.
Fail really, really quickly.
Yeah, that's you stick him there. You stick him in one of those other holes where teams are really struggling. I don't think he's a situation guy. He ends up getting drafted by like the Colts or something. He might be successful, but
he's not one that's going to go to a team that doesn't have many pieces and find success. And if you put him in that, he's going to crash and burn very fast, and then we'll forget about Matt Corral very quickly. So I think it would be in his best interest to fall to a team where he's maybe in the backup role for a few years, get some time to learn a system and NFL defenses before he was really thrust into that role.
Yeah. the draft quarterback show should be interesting this year. I hope you're studying up on who's going to run a fast 40 at the combine, and we have to pretend
We're
like
just going to go about 5 deep there this year, right?
yeah. All right. That's our recap and review for the college football week. Be sure to be here on Thursday. Like and subscribe. You don't want to miss that show. The Dynamite has already been sending me those picks. He was hot on the refresh button there on the BetMGM app to find those lines this week. And
I get them quick.
Yeah. Should be a lot of good games this week. I think this upcoming week's a much better week than last week. So should be an entertaining week. Be sure to look out for our NBA draft preview coverage. We just finished a 3-hour record with Achilles Rain doing NBA win totals. I will be back with Achilles Rain to do our NFL recap and review show tomorrow and our further NBA preview show with just me doing our Eastern Conference and Western Conference division contenders, winners, and NBA champions. So we'll see if I have a voice by Friday. A lot of shows and a lot of talking going down with us. As always, Dynamite David, that's our show, and we're out.
Greenlight Network presents Football Time.